Now this is the tricky bit, this is the fine art bit. So if we do this, and hopefully we've got it, hopefully.
You're listening to a Big Finish production.
Hello and welcome to another Doctor Who Big Finish video. In today's Doctor Who Big Finish video I'll be looking at this, the Death and the Queen vinyl, which has been recently released and is exclusive to HMV. Now I haven't talked about the Big Finish vinyls for about, ever since they first started coming out with Energy of the Daleks and Anything with Zaros, and obviously since then we've had quite a few. I think that this is the second vinyl of the year. I think that this is the second one for 2019. No, actually this is the third, to tell a lie, because we had Creeping Death, Wave of Destruction, now we have Death and the Queen. But what's quite nice about Death and the Queen is that we didn't have to go out in the shops and hunt it down and get up at the crack of dawn, because you could order this online because it's exclusive to HMV, so you could literally order it online and not have to worry. I'm kind of a casual vinyl fan, I guess. I tend to pick up the Big Finish ones and sort of releases what interests me. I don't tend to get everything on vinyl. As much as Evil of the Daleks tempts me, for 70 quid, I can't really justify it, even though the Abominable Snowmen, that does tempt me, so I probably will end up getting that. But yeah, there's something quite nice about the vinyl releases, especially the Tom Baker ones. I'm a big fan of the 4th Doctor vinyls, because there's just something about having that on vinyl just feels more retro, and I kind of love all that sort of retro stuff. It just makes it feel like, oh yeah, that was broadcast on BBC Radio back in like 1978 or whatever. So today we'll be looking at Death and the Queen. Now you might be wondering, you've already reviewed Death and the Queen, and you'll be right in saying that, but I thought it'd be quite nice to revisit it. This isn't going to be the standard review where I'm going to, sort of have a script and just, read off that. This is kind of going to be my just off-the-cuff thoughts, because obviously I've reviewed this before, and often when you review something, especially as big as the 10th Doctor Adventures, a certain thing called hype plays into that factor. Hype is a bit of a dangerous thing. Sometimes you can overhype a release and be disappointed, and sometimes you're just on the hype train going, oh my god, this is brilliant, this is amazing. And obviously this is the last story in the 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 1, or Series 1, whatever you want to class it as. So basically this is basically to see, if my opinions change, because opinions do change. I mean, I listened to Terror of the Sontarans recently. Didn't really enjoy it when it first came out, but I've grown to really like it, so we'll see whether my opinion on Death and the Queen has stayed the same, or it is different, whether I think of it in a different light. So taking a look at the presentation for this vinyl, so we have the Doctor Who logo there, full cast audio drama starring David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and then we've got some more cast members of Air, written by James Goss. So we've got the 10th Doctor there, some lightning strikes there, which is very nice. We've got Death, the Castle of Goritania. We've got the moon and this sort of green sort of mist motif, which is very reminiscent of the story, because we have the sort of skeleton army hiding in the sort of mist. Then we have Donna, and then we have the little sticker saying exclusive 180 gram heavyweight clear vinyl, only at HMV, where Donna is, and Donna was basically, cut out to look like Death. So the cover's been slightly altered. The side of the vinyl with this nice green motif there. And the back of the vinyl, we've got a bit of bio about the story, so do feel free to pause. And then we've got the cast list, got this nice image of Death there, all very creepy. And then we have the limited edition number What's Back. I think that this is the first limited edition for 2019, because Wave of Destruction, Creeping Death didn't have the limited edition number. As you can see, my limited edition number there, and what it's limited to. So taking a look at the vinyl sleeve, we've got writer's notes. So if you own the 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 1, then you'll basically know what you're getting, because the write-up is exactly the same by James Goss. So do feel free to pause if you want to have a little read about that. And then we have director's notes by Nicholas Briggs there, which is all very nice. So yeah, you can read it at your own leisure. We've got this nice sort of green cosmos background, and a lovely behind-the-scenes photo of David Tennant and Catherine Tate with the sort of Gallifreyan sort of motif behind it, which is all very nice. And on the other side we've just got sort of production credits on the actual release, which is all very nice. So let's have a look at the vinyl. So here we have the lovely vinyl. It is a clear vinyl. Now this is the first clear vinyl I have actually got in my little vinyl collection what I have. So yeah, I think that this is quite a nice little vinyl, but I don't really know if it represents the story that well. I feel like they could have done something a little bit special, because the last vinyl Big Finish did was the Wave of Destruction one, which is probably my favourite vinyl Big Finish have done, just because it's really beautiful, that sort of ocean swirl as they called it. But yeah, we've got sort of side one there, and on the other side you've got part two, because obviously this is an hour-long story and they've cut it into 2 parts to fit the vinyl format. But yeah, I think maybe they could have put like a green swirl on it, maybe sort of still keep the clear motif, but have like a green sort of swirl in it, maybe, or maybe sort of silver and green, maybe that'd be quite nice. So there's the presentation for this vinyl. I've got to say that Big Finish and Demon Records do a really good job with these vinyls. I think they've really knocked it out of the park, and they've got more experimental as they've gone on. So yeah, for 20 quid, it is a very nice vinyl. So I guess this is the sort of exciting bit, I guess, really, unless the vinyls were a really exciting thing, which probably is has my opinion on this story changed? Now, when I first listened to this story, this was my favourite story for Volume 1 of the 10th Doctor Adventures. It was just, to me, it just stood out quite a bit compared to the others. You know, Technophobia. Well, Volume 1 actually is a very interesting set because it's a very safe box set in terms of the 3 stories, but it does have that RTD coziness, if that makes sense. It does have that nice flair of RTD, with Technophobia being very much like Partners in Crime. So Technophobia was that great sort of contemporary opener. And then Time Reaver was that sort of space oddity, sci-fi romp, and then Death and the Queen was kind of a whimsical fairy tale story. So has my opinion changed on Death and the Queen? And the answer is no. I still love this story. I think that it is a really good story. It's one of my favourite 10th Doctor audios, what Big Finish have done. And it's quite interesting going back and listening to that, because obviously we've had 3 10th Doctor box sets since then. We've had Volume 2 and Volume 3. And it's very interesting that this story still stands out to be one of my favourites, if not my favourite. It is a really strong story. James Goss, as a writer, I really do like him. I really do like his style, because he kind of has that sort of Douglas Adams vibe, and I guess that's why he was chose to adapt the Douglas Adams stories like Cricket Men and Pirate Planet, because he just has that fine balance of drama and comedy. And this story, Death and the Queen, looking back on it, it does very much feel like a pilot and test the waters to see how good David Tennant and Catherine Tate are at comedy, because this story really does show how well those two are at comedy, because each character has a great comedic moment within it. You know, it is really great to see these characters in a different light, which is really nice to see Donna do something a little bit different than be the traditional gobby character we all know, because she really does shine, you know, taking protection over the people of Goritania. It is really nice, and you know, David Tennant really gets to show his comedic skills, and this story to me very much feels like a pilot to what James Goss would do in Volume 3 in the form of The No Place, the first story in the Volume 3 of the 10th Doctor Adventures with Wilf and Sylvia. You know, that story still has that sort of comedic feel to it, because obviously I guess James Goss wanted to see how far he could push the 10th Doctor and Donna in terms of comedy. But then you get sort of The No Place later on, where he really does go, okay, these two characters really work in comedic settings, so let's really push it. And The No Place is very much, you know, the 10th Doctor and Donna pretending to be a married couple. And that's a little great in-joke within Series 4, you know, and people going, oh, well, are you a thing? And like, no, we're not a thing. You know, so that's great that James Goss really played on that. But back to Death and the Queen, because, you know, The No Place is a brilliant audio, but we're here to talk about Death and the Queen. And Death and the Queen is brilliant. One thing what I have noticed since revisiting that, because there was one thing that always sort of bugged me, and I was always curious about the actual setting, because is it meant to be like the Android of Tara, this sort of medieval sort of setting, you know, in sort of space, or is it just this sort of mystery of time, this sort of forgotten kingdom? But you know, revisiting it, I've realised that it is this sort of forgotten kingdom due to the bargaining of this, you know, sort of kingdom. So that's one thing I've learned about this story. So it was great to revisit and finally go, that makes sense. To me, I recently watched Good Omens, and it kind of has that sort of same sort of vibe to it, obviously with, you know, this cloud being death and this sort of impending doom, but it still has that sort of Douglas Adams type of sort of charm to it, in the sense that, you know, there's armies of skeletons, you know, coming to invade this kingdom, and yet you've got these characters go, oh no, we must prepare the wedding. So it does have that sort of vibe to it, and each character really does shine, especially the 10th Doctor, because he has some really powerful moments, especially against the Queen Mother, when he's going, you know, some people, you know, don't tell Donna this, but there are some people who are just not worth saving. And it is just a brilliant line. I'm just like, yes, that was a great moment for the 10th Doctor. You know, looking back on this story and having time to reflect on it, I feel like this story really could suit, the 11th Doctor and Amy Pond. I feel like this would be a really great story for them because it has that sort of Series 5 whimsical nature to it, because Series 5 is very much a fairy tale-esque series. It definitely has those sort of fairy tale moments, and you can definitely picture the 11th Doctor within it, especially when the 10th Doctor is saying goodbye to Donna, about people leaving him, everyone a heartbreaker. I could really picture the 11th Doctor there, and especially when, the 10th Doctor's getting angry about what's going on, and, the true hidden nature, what goes on within this story. I could really see, the 11th Doctor getting absolutely furious. So I feel like this story would suit the 11th Doctor and Amy Pond. But, going further into the story, the writing just makes it work for the 10th Doctor and Donna, especially the Donna bits, because it just shows the power and the force Donna has behind it. So this story, it is brilliant. It is really great. It's got some really great funny moments, the way the 10th Doctor sort of interrupts Donna and Rudolph's date. Because he's fascinated about Gorytania. Why haven't I heard about Gorytania? This kingdom what's managed to, live in peace for 500 years. You think I would have heard about that. He's trying to solve that mystery, and then you've got Donna pretending to be, that everything's grand about Gorytania, that she's living a life of luxury, when it's not all glitz and glam, which is brilliant. And I love the line I love the jokes about Donna's wedding. You're not going to ruin the second wedding this time, which is a nice little callback to Runaway Bride. And I feel like this story is very much a feel-good audio, but it has that nice bits of comedy. It's a story what uplifts you, but there is a great sense of drama within it, especially when the army of skeletons arrive and sort of death is sweeping across the land. Forests are being destroyed, and the sort of army of Gorytania going out to stop the army of skeletons and just being massacred and just ripped apart. It is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant, because despite all those lovely comedy moments, there is some great horror with it, especially when death arrives. And this leads me into a bit of a negative about the actual vinyl. This isn't a negative about the actual story, it's more so the vinyl. Because obviously this story is an hour long, and this story, the vinyl has been cut in half to make it, work on the vinyl format. And the thing what lets this story down in terms of the vinyl release for me is the cliffhanger. A minute earlier within the actual story, you have Donna looking out the window and going, "That's Death, and he's looking at me." And you could have just cut the story there. But no, the story keeps going for another minute or so, and it's basically going, "Oh, I hope that she doesn't ruin the dress." I feel like that's kind of an awful shame, because I feel like that moment with Donna realising that's Death and it's looking at her, that would be a really powerful cliffhanger. So I would have just liked them to have cut the vinyl. I guess that is more of a problem to the actual vinyl than the actual story itself. So yeah, it does seem a bit of an odd place to cut the story, in my personal opinion, because a minute earlier that would have been a nice place to have cut the actual vinyl. Like I said, this story has some great imagery when the Doctor and Donna are literally on the battlements of this castle, and then there's this sort of cloud basically saying it's Death, and the army of skeletons just appearing from the mist. Has some real great imagery. Alongside that, like I say, the comedy is rich within it, especially with the 10th Doctor and Hortez, for going, "Oh, you'll make a brilliant companion." It is absolutely brilliant. The side characters are so memorable within it. Rudolph being kind of this squirmish character, don't want to get his hands dirty. The Queen Mother just being this stern, authoritative character, and then Hortense just being this brilliant maid character who is just swashbuckling and just brilliant and asked all the right questions, and just, you feel like, yeah, she would make a really good companion for the Doctor, kind of a maid version of Leela, I guess. There are some really great tense moments, especially when Donna is dancing with Death, and obviously the bargain must be met. So this story does have some really great tense moments, and the 10th Doctor just, trying to fight these army of, this story just kind of has everything for me. It just has some great action moments, a great action-packed start with the 10th Doctor riding a horse, going, "Look, I must see the Queen because Death is coming." It's just a really strong opener, and then you cut to this great sort of moment where the 10th Doctor's going, "Are we going to have a flashback?" And then a flashback happens. It's just a great, I guess it's kind of a bit of a tongue-in-cheek story, but I really like it, and I just really admire those types of stories. And James Goss just is a master of his craft, especially within this story. I feel like he's a great writer, especially with the Scorchies. It's again, it's the sort of same nature of the story, but you've got this really comedic idea in the form of these, puppets, who are basically gonna, destroy the planet, but there's this really great drama behind it, and there's this, despite all the funny songs within the actual release, the Scorchies are actually pretty terrifying. And then you get a story like The Last Post, what James Goss wrote, which is one of my favourite stories what he's wrote actually, is that you've got these nice little funny moments, but you have a really incredible story behind it in the form of The Last Post being this very serious plot about this apocalypse clock. It is a really great story, and Death and the Queen kind of fits in sort of the middle barrier, but it's not a serious drama, but it does have these great serious moments, but it does have this lovely bit of comedy within it. And David Tennant and Catherine Tate really do shine, but it just shows how well these two characters work within each other, because obviously Donna's doing her side, feeling her duty to save the people, very much like Fires of Pompeii, that she doesn't like to see people get hurt and she wants to make a difference, and that's a great bit of character within Donna within this story. But we still get the loudmouth, bits of Donna. So Death and the Queen I still rate very highly. It's still my favourite release of Volume 1 of the 10th Doctor. I don't know if Death and the Queen is my favourite 10th Doctor story what Big Finish has done. It's either this or The Creeping Death, which again has another vinyl release. This is the first vinyl from the 10th Doctor Adventures Series 1, which is rather nice, and I can't think of a better way to sort of get I can't think of a better story from Volume 1 to have a vinyl release. So yeah, it's really lovely. I think we were all expecting the No Place, the Wolf story. I think that will be a vinyl release, down the line. I do feel like the No Place will get a vinyl release. So to conclude on this vinyl, I think that it is a really nice vinyl, and if you can find it for a really good price, then do get it. I'm sure there's still some copies in HMV, but I'm sure most of us who wanted to get this were able to order it online, and I think that's what I love about the HMV Big Finish vinyls, is that you don't have to get up at the crack of dawn and try and find these vinyls, because these vinyls are becoming very elusive, and I guess part of the fun is trying to go to the shop and find it, but again, it's very frustrating. So it was quite, it was just really nice, to sit down in the morning and go, just gonna have a cup of tea and wait for the post to arrive, and there it is, the vinyl. So yeah, it is a really great vinyl, and a really great story to have on vinyl. I mean, Death and the Queen, if you're not too fussed about getting on vinyl, then it's definitely worth purchasing, because it is available on CD and download. I sound like a Big Finish salesperson. But yeah, it is definitely worth checking out, because it is a really fun story, and it really does show our two characters in great comedic roles. And what more can you ask for? Donna getting married again and it not really working out, but it is a great story. It is great. It is lovely. So I guess one final thing, I've got to rate Death and the Queen. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I still think that this is a really strong story. The only thing what lets down the vinyl release is where it's been, cut into make it a two-parter. I feel like the cliffhanger for this story does kind of let it down, because I feel like you did have that sort of perfect sort of cliffhanger, that perfect oh wow moment. But this, in terms of vinyl, I feel like as much as I love the comedy within this story, it doesn't kind of have that suspense to work as a cliffhanger. That sort of comedic cliffhanger doesn't really have much of a weight behind it. Doesn't make you go, oh, I really want to listen to the other side of this vinyl. So I feel like if they cut the story, a minute earlier, it would have been fine, but I guess it's down to the nature of the format of this release. So if you want me to talk about any sort of more Big Finish vinyls, whether it be Energy of the Daleks, Infamy of Zaros, or Wave of Destruction, then please do comment down below, and I'll happily talk about that vinyl release and sort of do how my opinions changed on that release, or has it stayed the same. I mean, if you wanted the vinyl, I hope you've got it, and if you are after the vinyl, I hope you find it for a reasonable price. So thank you very much for watching this Big Finish vinyl review. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time in my next video, whatever that'll be. So thank you very much, and allons-y. That's a bit ridiculous. I like it. Allons-y. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Bow.